Every now and again, I love when I stumble upon somebody with a different fighting game opinion from me. Whether it's a reactionary, a mainstream FGC creator, or a high-level player, it's interesting to see what everybody in the community that isn't me or my friends thinks about the games we all play. However, the main thing that I tend to look for is whether or not a creator can stand on business when they make heavy critiques of fighting games. Enter today's discussion of Harman Smith. Harman made a video that was recommended to me by one of my subscribers under one of my List Week videos, where Harman talks about my personal favorite fighting game of all time, Killer Instinct 2013. I love this thing, however, Harman does not. That's fine though, so I decided to buckle down and watch his video titled, Fighting Game YouTubers Failed to Convince Us All That Killer Instinct 2013 Was Good or Successful. Oh hey, I'm a fighting game YouTuber that has made Killer Instinct videos. Granted, I am not a large one, but still one nonetheless, so let's get into it. Before we start, hey, I'm Zak Not Kyle, or Zak for short, and I love fighting games and I will make them your problem. I talk mainly about fighting games on this channel, but I also discuss other pieces of popular culture that interest me. I'm also a streamer, a DJ, a party girl, and more, so subscribe here and to my Twitch for more content from me. And with all of that said, let's begin this list. And as always, I usually start these videos where I talk about other creators with a small disclaimer. Please do not go and harass or demean Harman on his channel. That is never what I want to do here, so just keep it cute.
When the Nintendo Direct dropped, I had an absolute ball playing through Killer Instinct again. I haven't put a significant amount of time into the game in years, right? Never really cared for it. Thought it was overrated. You know, Mortal Kombat's better, Street Fighter's better. There are dozens of better fighting games on other consoles, right? There are just Killer Instinct never did it for me. Never was impressive. I talked about this extensively on stream, but I actually did stop and play through like the arcade ladder in Killer Instinct 1. You know, I played Cinder, I learned that one easy combo you can do by just mashing forward and Y over and over again, and I managed to stomp like, you know, all these terrible CGI looking monstrosities, right? You know, Idol might be the most boring looking final boss in a fighting game I've ever seen in my life, right? You know, I don't care for Killer Instinct, right? You know, but I had fun, you know, like there's a certain amount of nostalgia in Killer Instinct 1995, the SNES port, right? You know, I like the music, I like a lot of the stage designs, I like some of the aspects of it. Like, the issue with the game is, I think, is that there are just so many better alternatives, right? Like, why would I bother learning KI when I could, like, play Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, right? To me, like, there are just so many other better alternatives. And I've always freely acknowledged that. You know, Killer Instinct is something I grew up with. I compared it to other fighting games at the time, and I dropped it very quickly for other better alternatives. You know, I dropped it for Mortal Kombat 2.
Now, mind you, this is completely fine. Everyone has their taste in fighting games. For example, I personally don't mess with a lot of anime fighters too much, like BlazBlue or Chaos Code, because I cannot grasp their combo systems as much as I would have liked to. Under Night In-Birth 2 is the happy little exception. Go play that game, by the way. However, I love Killer Instinct and Mortal Kombat. They are my favorites for sure. Having these preferences is fine. That's not the point of me making this video. This video is to point out how Harman is blissfully incorrect in most of his claims about Killer Instinct on a lot of levels.
Right? Mortal Kombat 2 by itself was so much more of an interesting experience for me. You know, discovering all the cool fatalities, learning each character, discovering each stage secret, you know, like fighting the hidden fighters, you know, getting to the top of the ladder. Like, there's so much cool stuff hidden in MK2 that makes it, in my opinion, one of the best fighting games of all time, right? You know, I love MK2, right? I've always spoken out about that. I consider it like, I would say it's my favorite fighting game on Super Nintendo, right? Like, Killer Instinct could never compete, right?
I agree with the point that the older Mortal Kombat games are in fact superior in terms of their gameplay compared to Killer Instinct. I would actually say the opposite is true for Killer Instinct 2013 though. I don't think there is a Mortal Kombat game that plays better than that game to me. I think the closest would probably be Mortal Kombat 1, because the gameplay of that game is really enjoyable, but Killer Instinct piques my interest better.
So, imagine my surprise when, like, I joined the YouTube gaming community and I realized that there's, like, a lot of fanatics out there. You know, people like Maximilian Dude and Matt McMuscles who are trying to tell you that, like, oh, Killer Instinct, it's one of the best fighting games ever. Yeah. I wish they would bring it back. Like, they did this for years, and then, like, Microsoft announced Killer Instinct 2013, right? The game came out, and there was this really weird, kind of unprecedented push from the community to try and present this idea that Killer Instinct 2013 was legit. one of the best fighting games ever made, a great revival to the franchise, a great addition to like the KI lore and like the setup and like a great Xbox One exclusive, right? The narrative, which I believe continues to this day, is that Killer Instinct 2013 is a legitimately great fighting game.
Yes, it is. Here's why. The thing that distinctly makes Killer Instinct one of the best fighting games of all time is two particular instances. The first is the sound design. The sound design of Killer Instinct is the best in any fighting game I've ever played. There is not a single one that touches its announcers, its musicality with the ultra combos. Hell, even little details like the main Killer Instinct theme playing on the pause screen as you tick through the buttons makes it incredible. The second main reason is its combo system. Most games do not play like Killer Instinct plays. Rather than supers or meter mechanics being the primary draw of the gameplay, the breakers in Killer Instinct are the core mechanic that make this game what it is. There is always a consistent way for you to get back in the game. Unlike games like King of Fighters where you're stuck in a combo that takes 70% of your health at times if you're good, Killer Instinct gives you various breakers, combo trains, and counter breakers, along with instinct and shadow mechanics that make it so unique compared to every other fighting game out there. It truly doesn't play like anything else, and it's why even though it may not have the highest numbers, it's one of the FGC's shining example of quality game design. Now, this isn't to say it's perfect. The visuals are a bit janky because it was developed with the 360 in mind, if I remember correctly, not the Xbox One. And the monetization of the game at first was a bit odd with the whole season mentality, but this game is still a net positive, so I'm curious as to why Harman makes such a point to hate it.
And I, as someone who played the original, who experimented a little with Killer Instinct 2013, me, the casual fighting game fan, like, I looked at these claims and I laughed, right? Because they obviously aren't true, right? Is Killer Instinct talked about today? Is it played today? Does it have, did it leave any impact? Is it played at tournaments? Do people talk about it? No.
Yes, in fact, it's one of the tournaments that does get immediate pot funding in several spaces. I will say, it is not the biggest game, but there is still a small passionate fanbase that still loves it. It also got updates for almost 10 years. There is still interest in this franchise, even if it's not the biggest thing ever. Hell, Maximilian Dude made Bring Back KI trend all over Twitter a few years back, and that was after its peak of relevance. This is just wrong.
Killer Instinct, I think, was something that was heavily shilled by the FGC in an attempt to try and bolster their roster for that year. It's so strange to see people like Maximilian Dude come out and try to call this a legitimately great fighting game. Something that looks awkward, something that looks janky, something that's hard to learn, something that's outclassed by other better fighting games, right?
Okay. So much wrong here. Firstly, yes, visuals are janky, you've got a point. However, the tutorials of this game make it incredibly user-friendly. Hell, there's a combo assist mode that works incredibly well up until you hit gold tier, I would know. The claim that the game is too hard to learn doesn't make any sense unless you actively avoid the ways the game tries to help you along the way. If you do that, it's not gonna make any sense. But if you lab a little and use the tutorial, you'll honestly be fine.
In that regard, I don't think Killer Instinct 2013 is much different from the original game, right? I don't think there's anything special, unique, or interesting about Killer Instinct 2013. And all the videos I've seen on the subject, people talking about what a great revival for the franchise it is, they have done nothing to convince me that, there's something I'm missing out on, that there's some spectacular reason to play Killer Instinct on Xbox One. Right?
The original KI games are not that great compared to the likes of MK2, yeah, but KI 2013 is better than any MK I've played over the years, and I love that franchise. I feel like where Harman is misstepping so badly in his critique here is that he's not only conflating the argument of KI 1 and 2 versus KI 2013, but he's also using numbers and visuals as the sole things to go off of for this game. When using only those metrics ignores why this game was so beloved by the FGC for so long, and still is in some pockets today.
From what I experienced with the game, what I've seen other people do, what I've heard, it feels forced. It feels fake. It feels a lot like the build up to that hype around Sea of Thieves, right? Where people were hyping this up as oh man, it's this open world pirate adventure with MMO elements, and you're gonna be looking for treasure, it's gonna be the best rare project in years, right? It is people trying to coast off of Rareware's good name, right? Microsoft is still trying to present Rare as a top tier studio, as if they're anywhere near what they were during the 90s, right?
I have never seen anyone after the 2010s try to say Rare is a top-tier company. I just haven't. They have incredible properties, yes, but I feel that their properties often get mismanaged because Microsoft is too gun-shy with them. They hesitate to pull the trigger on Banjo-Kazooie, Sea of Thieves, and Killer Instinct a lot. They're clearly scared to risk sinking money into Rare's games for whatever reason, hence why they often don't have many sequels from Rare's hands. Also, fun thing to point out, Rare did not directly develop Killer Instinct, they just provided the IP.
That to me was a really blatant attempt at it, of like trying to gaslight people into thinking Killer Instinct was like some spectacular thing, right? They seem to understand that like Rareware still has like this commands a lot of respect in the industry. You know, I have kids in my family who still play Rareware games, right? Like stuff in the 90s, who still love that stuff, like Donkey Kong Country, DK64. You know, it's really popular among kids even today, right? And I think Microsoft understood that, right? You know, it's why they put out that Battletoads game, right? It's why they tried to bring back Killer Instinct. It's why they tried to bill like Sea of Thieves as like their big thing. Like they are trying to own, or at least they were trying to own the idea that like, oh, we own Rareware now. We own one of the best game studios in the world. Yeah. Don't you want to support Rareware? You know, Nintendo fan? And the answer is no, right? Like I have seen nothing positive from Rareware's acquisition of Xbox. You know,
I really don't think that was the plan here. Microsoft probably brought on Rare because of the extensive list of properties they had in order to bulk up the Xbox list of exclusive titles that they thought they could have. I do think this bit Killer Instinct in the ass later down the line, much like it can be argued that the same is true for Street Fighter V to some degree. Regardless though, it's not some plot to throw Nintendo fans over to Microsoft. This is just business in the gaming industry. And I still fail to see why I should hate Killer Instinct and think it's a nothing burger by Check's notes talking about how Microsoft is gaslighting Nintendo players into buying their products.
Rabbi the Ghoulies, Cameo, Viva Pinata, Perfect Dark Zero, all of that was crap, right? Like none of it lived up to what we were seeing from the N64 era, right? And anybody with any real standards like noticed that almost immediately, right? The only people who stuck around were like probably just massive Xbox cocksuckers, right? Like I'm sure they exist, right? You know, I don't talk to these people and I don't care about them, but like I'm sure they exist, right? And yeah, like sometimes this kind of attitude, you know, this blind worship for the Xbox brand, it bleeds into relevant game discourse, right? Like
this is truly throwing stones at glass houses here. Harman is a known glazer of Nintendo and their products. In fact, you can see bits and pieces in it in this video here. Having preferences is entirely fine. That's why I like Killer Instinct and why he doesn't. But you're missing the point when you clearly do the thing that you're critiquing Killer Instinct fans for allegedly doing. You've got to make sure you're not being a hypocrite here.
In this specific instance, like they were trying to build Killer Instinct as the best exclusive fighting game IP on Xbox. You know, something that you could buy an Xbox for and enjoy it, right? And the reality is, Killer Instinct 2013 was not that good. You know, I had no interest in playing the game. I only played it on Game Pass. I experienced like a couple of rounds of it. Didn't care for it. Didn't enjoy it. Like the game was not spectacular in any way, shape, or form. And I think if the game really was that good, if it did have an audience, if it did do well, why have we not gotten a sequel? Right?
Oh, thank God I can talk about this. I also wondered the same thing, except unlike Harman, I know the answers. So, there have been some small pushes to get Killer Instinct a sequel, but something that is often lost on not only fighting game fans, but gaming fans at large is that games cost a lot of money. On top of that, fighting games cost a whole lot of money in particular. On top of that, not many studios actually have the bandwidth or ability to code and balance fighting games properly. So for those unaware, Phil Spencer had actually wanted to go somewhere with KI for a while now, like upwards of half a decade. But there isn't a studio to actually develop it right now. Iron Galaxy is doing 3 games at any given time, NRS is burning, Capcom is occupied, SNK is very occupied, ArcSys has 17 fighting games that it's developing or outsourcing every 2 minutes, and Bandai Namco is in a tight financial spot that Tekken 8 is currently saving them from at the moment, so there's not a studio to take this IP right now, which sucks. If there was, we would have had a KI sequel by now. So because of these reasons, we don't have one. There There is always a swirling rumor that we'll get a Killer Instinct sequel like every 2 years or so. Like, y'all remember when everybody thought Bandai picked it up? That was fun. But right now, we're looking at one in the late 2020s, possibly around like 2027 to 2028 if Microsoft can land a studio to develop this thing.
That is the reality here, right? That game came out in like 2013, right? You know, what did we get? Like, Mortal Kombat 9 came out in 2011, right? We got 5 by 2015, 9 by 11 by 2019, and then 1 this year, like last year, right? You know, 1 every like 3 or 4 years, right? What has Killer Instinct done since 2013?
Alright, so before I go ahead and let Harman answer that question, let's discuss why Mortal Kombat is the absolute worst game to use for this analogy, shall we? Mortal Kombat's high game turnover in comparison to every contemporary game that it currently has is because WB forces NetherRealm to do this. They need new games constantly because Warner Brothers burns money faster than they have it. Because of the higher-ups, if something isn't out of the gate profitable in ways never seen before, then it's axed. This is why Mortal Kombat 1, after 14 months of existence, is rumored to have been axed. Because WB messed up their other games so badly that it put Mortal Kombat 1 in a spot that no game would be able to capitalize on. If you were to use Street Fighter or Tekken for this, I would kind of see your point, honestly. Like, we did get 2 Street Fighter games and 2 Tekken games in the time that it took KI to just exist, but there's also other factors like those 2 games not having massive development issues for years. Or we could also bring up the fact that Tekken and Street Fighter have developer homes, and KI does not. You have to give context to the comparisons you make, or they fall flat on their face like Harman's claims are.
We've gotten 3 Mortal Kombat games since that game came out. And yeah, you can argue they're bad, but like, I think the difference in Mortal Kombat, like, Mortal Kombat fans are willing to admit that the games have gotten worse. We're willing to admit that there's an issue with quality and like keeping the games interesting and fresh and original, right? Like, there's an issue there. But like, I never saw any Killer Instinct 2013 fan acknowledge that there was no real growth or evolution from the 90s version, right?
I do not feel the need to explain why this is wrong, as the earlier points articulate this quite well. Moving on.
Killer Instinct 2013 was not what it was hyped up to be. It was not a spectacular fighting game. It was not an Xbox must-have product. It was not a particularly good revival of a Nintendo-developed IP. It was a complete waste of everyone's time and attention.
And yet, not many points have been provided to back this claim in any fashion. Like, if you're gonna hate this game so bad, you have to actually explain why you hate the thing and go into detail. In fact, I have several video scripts where I'm planning to do exactly that. There are dozens of full comprehensive breakdowns on why Mortal Kombat sucks, or Tekken sucks. Yet this one on Killer Instinct can't seem to properly do this. Listen, Harman is allowed to dislike the game. Maybe he hates the combo systems or the visuals. Well, he definitely hates the visuals. That's cool. However, actually explain yourself. What about the visuals is wrong? What about the combo system is wrong? Where did the growth stagnate for Killer Instinct? All questions that will not be answered by Harman Smith in this video because of a simple lack of effort and justification. So, in conclusion, if you're gonna be a hater, please be a hater with accuracy. Don't do what so many reactionaries do, where they make sweeping claims without anything to properly back their arguments. Provide a good setup and argue what you say. Stand on business so you could have a voice that's loud and makes sense. Don't get loud for nobody to move. This was just a flat attempt. And with that, that is where I will go ahead and conclude this video. What do you think of my opinions here? Do you agree with Harman? Do you agree with me? Do you like Killer Instinct? Do you hate Killer Instinct? Are there other fighting games that I should go into depth about why I'm a hater of them? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, I'm probably gonna go work on a video script to actually justify why I don't like Sparking Zero, because a lot of you seem to be mad about that in my comments for some reason. Bye, sis.